Welcome back to On Texas Football's Wednesday night Longhorn Livestream. I'm your host, Amanda Atwell, joined, of course, with the pros, Jeff Howe and CJ Vogel. How are we doing tonight, guys?
Better than one Longhorn.
Yes, better than one Longhorn. And that is how we will start out our show, unfortunately. I'm sure everyone here has seen the news. We've been seeing it in the comments. And speaking of comments, get your questions in. Super chats jump to the top of the list. But Wardell Mack, redshirt freshman defensive back, arrested on DWI charges. And I'll just read some of the details of these charges to get us off. Travis County inmate search online records. According to those, Mack, he's 19 years old, was arrested at 1:07 a.m. Central Standard Time on Wednesday and charged with the DWI, a Class B misdemeanor in the state of Texas. The bond was $3,000, and I'm pretty sure he bonded out. This article said he hadn't bonded out yet, but I'm pretty sure the update is that he has bonded out yet. Steve Sarkisian has released a statement on this. We're aware of the situation with Wardell Mack. We will continue to monitor the legal process, and the situation will be handled internally at the appropriate time. So a little bit about Mack. He's a redshirt freshman. You haven't seen him much. He redshirted last year after playing in 4 games. He did have one really good interception against Colorado State, but have not seen anything from him this season. Guys, what are our thoughts on this?
Probably not the best time for him to find himself in trouble at a time where Grayson Littleton is surging and is taking a ton of snaps at the star position. So probably a case of really, really bad timing in terms of his status on the depth chart. Yeah,
especially in these next 3 games, right? This was supposed to be a time where he's on the field, earning the trust of his coaches, earning the trust of the Dwayne Aquino, Mark Orfe, these guys in the secondary, whether it's at corner, whether it's at nickel. He got a lot of work at nickel in the spring. Unfortunate, obviously. There's no real excuse for this to happen. In today's day and age, look, it's inexcusable. There's so many other options to get you from A to B, especially in the city of Austin. So very unfortunate, but like Texas does, this will be handled internally. I'm sure you won't hear or see of Wardell Mack's name for a little while until this gets handled. And again, unfortunate, but to do this at 19, look, I think, there's quite a learning moment in all of this.
Do we have any precedent for how these situations have been handled previously with Sark?
Not really. And
I can't really think of anything.
Yeah, because
related to this.
There's the Nick Brooks incident in the spring, and Texas again handled it internally, and I like that about Sark. I don't think it's for the fan base. I don't think it's for the folks outside of Austin to know what the punishment is or to know how they're being handled. So that's one thing I do think this staff does a very fine job of, is keeping it in-house. Some of these things don't need to be anybody else's business. It's a family business. So keep it within the walls of Moncrief. And again, for Texas, it hasn't happened all too often. I think that's a positive. It's not Georgia.
Yeah, I was about to say we're not that other program that has a little bit of issues with the cars. And Arch even has a Waymo sponsorship, doesn't he? Doesn't he need to give him some free rides or something?
Yeah.
But anyways, we can move on to some better news. Unfortunate.
GTA, come on.
Unfortunate situation, but hopefully it will be handled swiftly and internally, and it will not happen again. But in better news, the Ohio State viewership has come out, and it was the most watched college football opener in history with 18 million views, which is pretty insane, all things considered. Unfortunately, not a win, but there are some eyeballs on that game.
Yeah, and I think this is the expectation, right? It was the buildup of Arch Manning on his first road start against the defending national champions, the rematch aspect. Of course, 2 top 3 teams in the country. It felt like it was built up to be the most watched game of the season. Unfortunately, it didn't deliver quite like that. I think everybody's kind of sitting around. 18 million people are sitting around watching in the third quarter saying, what the hell? I've been to steal Stephen A. Smith's line, I've been bamboozled, I've been led astray, I've been run amok. And I think that's how a lot of folks felt, towards the middle of that game, unfortunately. For Texas fans, maybe about their offense, they felt the 3 same ways there. But, yeah, a lot of eyes on Arch. I would imagine Texas in the top 10 for many games this year for viewership.
Yeah. Chico Diaz asked Fox at 16.6. This says 18. What is it? So basically, it peaked at 18 million. When the peak viewership, there were 18 million people watching this game. Fox considers 16.6. Number. I'll just say this for the Fox broadcast because I think this is the only Fox game Texas is going to play this year because of the SEC's deal with ESPN. I love Joel Klatt as an analyst, still do.
Yeah.
The caricature of Gus Johnson, basically doing a caricature of himself, has become an absolute beating during these broadcasts. So I used to love Gus, but he's gone the Brent Musburger route and is just doing bits at this point.
He's a pitcher that's pushing 40s, throwing probably 89. He's getting shelled every other Friday night. He once had that that 98 was zip. He's painting the black. Now it's kind of going 400 feet the opposite way. It's no longer that fastball that we all knew and loved. So it's unfortunate, but I'm with you. I like Cloud a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody.
Gus is sorry, man. Gus is Jamie Moyer. Like, he's not terrible. I mean, I've heard much worse, but it's not. When it's rehearsed and concocted, it's just I don't like it.
I don't know if anybody else noticed this on the broadcast, but there was one point where they popped up the location and it said Arlington, Texas. And so that kind of spoke to me about the Fox broadcast there a little bit. I didn't get as much viewpoints as I thought it would, but I made sure I was like, that is today, right? And it was an outdoor stadium. So yeah, that was from that game. So.
Amanda, like the fact checkers or the behind the scenes people on some of these broadcasts, and actually I think it may be the play-by-play guys, and I don't think it was Gus doing this game, but it was a CBS game. The Saints were playing the Texans in Houston. And someone's like, Drew Brees back in his home. It's a homecoming for Drew Brees. I'm like, but y'all pulled out a map and seen how far it is from NRG Stadium to Westlake Hills? Like, it ain't exactly his backyard.
No. Anyways, so great game last week. Got to move on to what we have coming up, though. Player health update. We've gotten a couple updates on some of our injured players. Emmett Mosley specifically. I know you had a little update on his status, CJ.
Yeah, Steve Sarkisian in the SEC teleconference this afternoon told reporters that, look, Emmett Mosley remains limited. If he does play on Saturday, it won't be very much. And, Jeff, I'd like to get your thoughts because I wasn't even expecting the opportunity or one of those leave it open answers for Sarkisian about Emmett Mosley. I know he did that against Ohio State, and Sark normally doesn't give off or tip his hand when it comes to injury reports. But if he does play, look, that's a plus for Texas. Whether it's 3 snaps, 10 snaps, 20 snaps, just to get him on the field, that's something that, again, Texas is going to need at some point this year with how thin that wide receiver room is. But right now, I would put him at doubtful right now. There's just nothing worth risking in this weekend.
It could be a deal, too, where maybe he dresses out for pregame and goes through warm-ups, which is basically kind of like your individual period during practice anyway. And then when the team comes out of the tunnel, he's just got the jersey top and shorts on. So maybe it could be one of those deals. Look, if it's and Texas hasn't said exactly what it is, but if it's, some kind of like soft tissue deal, like a hamstring or something like that, the absolute worst thing you can do is rush back, because if you tweak it, now you're starting all over from square one again, which is the same. That's the boat Jonah Williams is in right now. I mean, he's had that hamstring issue since baseball season, and if you're not careful with it, it's just going to linger and linger and linger and be an issue all year. So hopefully they can get it figured out with Emmett Mosley. Look, for me, guys, I would just like to see him get at least one of these 3 games in before you start SEC play. So ideally, he plays against Sam Houston, then you get the bye week to see how he recovers, and then you go to Gainesville.
This is kind of a left turn from the conversation we're having, but on that conversation of production from transfer wide receivers, they go in one of 2 categories, right? It's either a first-round wide receiver, a total stud that Texas relies on all year, or they don't ever see the field. And whether it be injuries, whether it just be whatever else. It's interesting, you don't have that middle ground. I don't think Texas was ever going to expect that from the guys that they were bringing in. It's interesting. I don't know what there is to that, but interesting trend, huh?
Yeah, that 2022 haul of Ajay Hall, Isaiah Nayer, and Tariq Milton didn't exactly set the world on fire.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought Tariq Milton was a good dude, but like, look, we know what happened with Nayer and Ajay Hall. Again, just another reminder, kids, if you're going to do something nefarious, don't live stream yourself doing it.
On that note, how beneficial do we think it would be for Emmett Mosley to get in before that Florida game? Because obviously that's going to be a massively different environment than these next 3 games at home will be.
Yeah, he's not necessarily played in a crazy road game, at least nothing to the extent that he'll see in the Swamp. Playing at Stanford, they're no longer in the Pac-12, but they're seeing crowds. Are stadiums packed to the gills to see Stanford play football? Not anymore. Not since Christian McCaffrey and Andrew Luck, I would assume, but just to get that rapport with Arch. I think everybody needs that in this wide receiver room, especially after what we saw week 1. Any receptions for these guys thrown by Arch is a step in the right direction, especially if you've only been receiving those passes from Arch since the middle of June. So for Mosley, the quicker he can get onto the field, the better, especially considering you had high hopes for this guy. This was a guy that was pegged to be a starter for Texas, and the longer he goes without those big, meaningful reps, the more questions you're going to have big picture-wise when it comes to playing a Florida, a Georgia, an OU, and A&M later on down the road. Hopefully, again, he's healthy. Hopefully, he's able to get on the field sooner rather than later, and Texas is able to, kind of reap the benefits of adding him to his roster because he's a talented player.
Yeah, I'm with CJ. I just want him on the field for the reps because when you look at his freshman year at Clemson or at Stanford, 2 notable road games. He had 7 catches for 48 yards and a touchdown at Clemson, and then only 1 catch for 16 yards at Notre Dame. But you've been to Clemson, you've been to South Bend, you've been in some big time college football environments. So I'm less worried about that as much as I am more worried about just continuing to build that rapport with Arch. But that's why I want him on the field, Amanda, because we've talked about it like with the young receivers, but I think it applies to everybody in that room. Like Jack injuries and the tight ends included, the next 3 weeks are huge in terms of building a rapport with Arch, getting comfortable with him. Who is he comfortable with? So whatever your passing game looks like in SEC play, this is where you're going to build at these next 3 games.
And also, we have a question here from John. Have they disclosed if it is a soft tissue injury, or have they said any specifics about it?
Yeah, we've not heard anything from the school, but the belief is hamstring. A soft tissue. Originally, there was rumors of a shoulder. I don't think that was correct, but I do think it is a soft tissue. He's not been suited up in practice, but he's been inching his way back in terms of off practice field workouts. So soft tissue is where we'll lie.
All right, we'll get to some of the other options that are at that kind of thin wide receiver room in just a second. First, we're going to thank our sponsor over at South Point Dodge. Hey, Texas football fans, score an easy extra point this season when you get to the point at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge has over 600 vehicles in stock, including the all-new 2025 Ram 1500. Get the real deal today and drive away in an all-new Ram, proven to last. Plus, you can get employee incentive pricing. That's right, you pay what our employees pay. Now, that's a real deal. So score big today at South Point Dodge. Come see us off I-35 in South Austin or at southpointdodge.com. Get to the point at South Point Dodge. Now, guys, make sure you get your questions in. We'll get to those in a little bit. And once again, those super chats, they'll pop to the top of our list. Now, talking about those wide receivers, this room is one that there have been a lot of questions at, especially after the first game with Wingo's performance. Who do we think could earn the trust in the next month? Because that's kind of what this next month is about, earning the trust with the staff and earning and getting that cohesiveness with Arch.
Any of them have the opportunity to take that next step. And I say that because I don't think there's anybody beyond the 4 that we saw on the field, Jeff and Amanda, that is in a position right now to really, jump over the others and cut the line to get to that fifth wide receiver spot. We heard that Ryan Niblett was going to be the fifth guy if Texas went deeper into its bench from Sarkisian on Monday. Who would have been that sixth? Who's next in line after Ryan Niblett, who's been in the program for 3 years, who's bounced around from position to position? He knows that program or that playbook. Who's next up? I don't think there's a definite answer. And is that a concern? I would say so. You got 16 games ahead of you. At least you think you have 16 games ahead of you. If you don't yet know what that depth looks like, well, this month is where you figure that out. So I think a Khalid Lockett is best suited to make the jump. I think, look, if you're Aaron Butler, you cannot be losing reps to more true freshmen. You got to go take what's yours. And you've been in this system program longer than anybody not named DeAndre Moore, right? So go take that spot. It's time to take the reins and show that you belong here. And quite frankly, we've not seen a single lick of that. So I'm looking at those two. How can you prove your worth? And I do think Texas will have an eventual game plan for a Jamie French or for Jamie French and a Michael Terry. How long away are we from seeing that? I'm not sure. But again, this month is a great opportunity for them to get their feet wet and record some sort of play time to at least know what the speed of a college football game is like.
I'll back up a little bit, and beyond that, I mean, I got to see Arch and Ryan Wingo get on the same page, because I think you've got your best chance to have a legit bona fide number one wide receiver is Ryan Wingo, and they weren't on the same page on Saturday. And look, we've talked ad nauseum about why and what went wrong with the offense, but Ryan Wingo has the talent. He's got the ability to develop into a big time, like I said, legitimate number one wide receiver. I want to start seeing it over the next 3 weeks. And that's not just on Wingo himself. That's on Chris Jackson. That's on Arch. That's on Sark. That's on everybody to make this thing work. But you need that one guy that when he steps on the field, everybody has to account for him. So I need Ryan Wingo to be that guy, because he's your best chance to have that guy.
And I don't know about y'all. We didn't see many, quick screens. We didn't see many bubbles. But look, I know we've talked about DeAndre Moore being that kind of Jordan Whittington kind of lead blocker there. Why not get him involved? And if he's not going to be your lead blocker, who can be behind him to receive some of those quick, easy passes, get the quarterback into a rhythm? I don't know if Texas has that on their roster right now with Wingo, Livingston, and Moore being their big three. If they did, I would kind of picture DeAndre Moore being that guy, but I don't know. I want to see someone with a little bit more wiggle. And right now, I think Texas is lacking that at the moment.
Yeah, and Sark did discuss the expectations that were on Wingo, especially during the Ohio State game. So if we could pull up that clip from Sark, if we have it.
I thought Ryan had flashes where it looked like, man, this guy is going to be the player that we know he can be. I thought there was other moments where I think he can be better, and I think he would probably tell you the same thing. And some of that is playing the amount of plays that he played the other night or the other day. That was a lot of plays that he played. And so from a conditioning standpoint, we've got to take a little bit off his shoulders as he builds to being that guy. There was opportunities that the ball was thrown to him to make plays. There was other opportunities when maybe he didn't get the best ball thrown his way. And there's other opportunities where maybe the ball didn't get thrown, but he's going to be a good weapon for us. He and DeAndre, we already know, but like I said, what an added bonus to have Jack and Parker make their plays, and then ultimately when we can get Emmett back going again. So we got plenty enough weapons that way where he doesn't feel like he has to shoulder the burden. I thought
there's two things I'm thinking about right there. One, and I see from the chat, well, Arch airmailed the throw, whatever. It's kind of like Sark was talking about there. I don't care whose fault it was, because it doesn't matter. Like you've got to figure it out, and you've got to get on the same page. That is the biggest thing for me thinking about Ryan Wingo. And the other thing is, again, like I said, like you need to have that one guy that your wide receiver group, we've seen it throughout the years, whether it was, Roy Williams or Lima Sweet or Jordan Shipley or whoever it was, like go on down the list. Devin Duvernay was that guy one year. Matthew Golden ended up being that guy. Xavier Worthy was that guy that when the offense goes out, all 11 guys on defense, especially the back 5 or 6 defensive backs, have to know where that guy is. And I think the other thing that is key too, I think, as Arch grows with this receiver group, and I'll throw the tight ends and the backs in there too. Every great quarterback should elevate your skill guys. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I think, CJ, I think you kind of hit on this too. I think it's the entire group. Like, everybody's got a chance to grow with Arch over these next 3 weeks. Because I think once you get to the bye week, I think for the most part, whatever your rotation is what it's going to be. I mean, especially for a guy like Aaron Butler. Like, if Khalil Lockett and Jamie French pass you in these next 3 weeks, I don't see you getting that many snaps. And the same goes for Ryan Niblett too.
Well, yeah, let's set the stage just a little bit for this weekend, right? Jeff, you mentioned it yesterday, and I like the phrase, so I'm going to steal it. I'm just going to be completely honest, but it should be a name your number game if you're Steve Sarkisian, right? You should be able to walk out there and say, we're going to put up 65 points. We're going to go out there, we're going to score 48 points. We're going to go out there, we're going to score 70, right? It doesn't matter, right? But you get what I'm saying. Sarkisian, Texas, Arch, this offense, they should be able to go out there and basically have their way with this defense. And I say that why? Because you look at the talent discrepancy. You look at the size. San Jose doesn't have a defensive lineman over 295 pounds. They should be able to run right up the gut the same way Central Michigan did for 250 yards and find ways to score the ball. Now, will that be the case in the red zone? I'd like to see that before I believe it, right? But my point being, in the passing game specifically, that pocket should be there. As a result, Arch should feel more comfortable in the pocket. That internal clock should not be running on 2 times speed, That's how I watch a lot of my TikToks and Twitter videos, is on that double speed so I can get through more of them faster. But point being is he's got to let things slow down, come more naturally, allow those routes down the field to develop a little bit more naturally. And again, this is the time to do it over the next 3 weeks before that speed then again gets a little bit faster. And he's playing against Florida and Ohio and Oklahoma. So there's got to be some big explosives. There's got to be some drives that sustain 3rd and 4th downs, because again, I tweeted it out on Monday. Texas against Ohio State and Georgia over the last year and a week. They've played 4 games. 3rd down conversions, you're converting at 29%. 4th down conversions, you're converting at about 30%. That is pretty bad against great defenses, and it's only going to get worse if you're not executing against bad defense. So this is the weekend that you start getting that ball rolling moving forward.
I don't necessarily disagree with that, CJ, but I'm far less concerned about, Texas scoring. Like, they could score 70 and you could still have concerns. Like, I want it to be, number one, on offense, I want it to be clean. Like you said, like situational football, the next 3 weeks should be as close to flawless as you can be. Like 3rd down, 2-minute, red zone, 4th down, all that stuff we talked about, high red area. Like, it's all got to mesh. It's all got to work. It's all got to click. So I want it to be clean. But these 3 weeks too, it's a chance for Sark. Hey, what are the plays? What are the throws? What gets Arch going to start a drive, to start a game? Like, what gets him in rhythm? Like, this is stuff that Sark needs to figure out, because, man, if you don't have that stuff, like the nuts and bolts, the meat and potatoes of your offense, if you don't have that figured out, those core concepts, by the time you get to Gainesville, it's going to be a long night in the swamp. So, like, your drive starters, what gets Arch going? What are Ryan Wingo's favorite routes? What, where does Jack Indries like the ball? Like, you find out what makes your playmakers on offense most comfortable and get really good at repping those things in a game.
We got this comment from Bobby. CJ, put down the social media and up your movie game. I think if you're watching TikToks on 2 times speed just to get through more of them, you probably have some time for a couple movies in there.
Yeah. I need to put down the chess app too. That's my 3 vices right now.
App. Are you 80?
I'm trying to grow my brain.
There you go.
It's pretty limited here with the swiping on TikTok.
Yeah, I mean, we all do it. I do it as well, so I can't blame you too much. But before we get to our next topic, we're going to thank our friends over at Advanced Pain Care.
Pros know the pain stops here.
Physical therapy helps me as an athlete then and now. And do I still need therapy? Yes. And Advanced Pain Care helps with that.
Injuries will stack up. They'll add up. You can't let those injuries get you down, and Advanced Pain Care has been very helpful for me.
We can help with whatever's got you down, from nerve damage to our spinal cord stimulator. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Same-day appointments available.
Advanced Pain Care. The pain stops here.
All right, thanks so much, Advanced Pain Care. Now, if we had to choose right now, who would you guys pick to be, who's going to be the breakout, that guy on the offense this season? Just, you know how kind of Matthew Golden was that guy last year. Who do you think is going to do that this season?
Is the answer already here? Is it going to be Parker Livingstone?
Probably. Yeah.
You know, it feels like he's taking the steps. You know, we've heard about it from the spring. He had a great summer. He went into fall camp, and he's continued to earn the trust of Arch Manning. Look, again, he was on the field for 65 of 67 snaps for Texas on Saturday. If that's not the trust of Steve Sarkisian and Chris Jackson, I don't know what is. Now, he only saw three targets go his way. He hauled in 2 of them. But one of them, I think, is, you know, one of the throws where Arch looks back and says, okay, it was one of my better throws, but he went up and he made a play. And that was one of the few times where, 1, the ball was in the vicinity for a play to be made, but 2, a play was made. So Jack Injuries, Parker Livingstone, hats off to you guys. Y'all made a play on the ball in which there just wasn't a lot otherwise. And obviously Arch didn't help out his receivers all too much either.
No, I'm with you, CJ, on Livingston. And I'll throw this in there too. Like I was thinking about, you know, the next 3 weeks, how big it is for the receivers. And I think this is a time where, if you're one of those guys, like if you're a guy like Christian Clark, for instance, and I know we talk about those freshman receivers, but if you're a guy like Christian Clark, or even Jarrett Gibson, Nick Townsend, Jordan Washington, like the next 3 weeks are when you can force the coach's hands to make Sark feel like, dang, like we need to play more 12 personnel because we got to get Jordan Washington on the field. Or you know what? We need to be in more 2-back stuff because Wisner and Baxter need their reps. Man, we got to get Christian Clark in the game too. So like your performance these next 3 weeks, and I keep saying these next 3 weeks, is like, look, again, Gen Pop's not going to care what happens. They'll just look at the score Sunday morning and be like, okay, Texas killed San Jose State. Great. But like us, as we watch these games, like this is going to be the foundation of who you are on offense and what your role is this year. You got 3 weeks to do it. Cause like once you get into conference play, that's not the time to wonder, hey, am I going to get snaps this week? Like, no, you got to go win high leverage football games and get ready to go try to make a push to get back into the playoffs. So you can alter the future of the offense. You can alter Sark's vision of the offense, and you can alter your future if you're one of those guys further down the depth chart in the next 3 weeks.
I've also seen this comparison a good bit. What do we think about this?
Yeah, I mean, you know.
There's a potential. Nope.
No.
Tell me how you really feel.
I'm not going there. Like, look. Oh, hey, CJ, was it Michael Taff, I think, that said he was talking about Parker Livingston? And somebody mentioned the Jordan Shipley comparison. He's like, there's a stereotype there, I guess. Yeah. Like, yeah, pretty much. That would be like, and I you know, this is going to sound like I'm disparaging Parker, but it's the same people that wanted to draw the comparison between like Tyrone Swoops and Vince Young. I'm like, the body type is where that comparison stops because nothing else needs to be said in that realm. Period. Point blank. End of story.
Yeah. No, I mean, they live together. That's about it.
It's the end of that comparison. All right, y'all, get in your questions. Once again, super chats jump to the top of the list. Moving on, any other freshmen that we think we could get more reps in the next few games that you guys are excited for?
Yeah, I want to see more Nick Townsend. I do.
Damn right.
You know, for him, his first snap was in that first series, and he blew back in 290-pound senior defensive end. And that's all we saw of him. But I liked what I saw, and I want to see more, you know, and we've talked about it all the time. You know, his physicality is going to exceed where he is when it comes to his ultimate readiness for college football. But my goodness, did he look good. I also want to see more Lance Jackson, Justice Terry on the back end. You know, Cade Phillips, you know, that's a guy that has all the length and athleticism in the world. And when does a Jonah Williams really start to get back into the fold for the Texas Longhorns? If he gets on the field, you know, is he a guy that becomes a rotational piece immediately, you know, the same way Derek Williams did 2 years ago? Is he a guy that, quite frankly, is too difficult to keep off the field because of the talent that he possesses? Ultimately, he's one of the guys that at the very top of the list, I want to see him on the field at some point because, quite frankly, we don't know anything about him at the college level, right? Hadn't been practicing a whole lot. So those are my guys, Jeff. Sorry if I took everybody, but Jonas probably top of the list there for me.
No, he's a red shirt, but I want to see Christian Clark because somebody might have been Sandman. I apologize. I missed it if I'm misidentifying who said it. But Christian Clark's probably the closest thing you've got in that running back room to the Jaden Blue skill set. So I want to see Christian Clark a little bit again, even though he's a red shirt. I want to see some more Nick Brooks because you've still got to develop a number 3 tackle. Really want to see Nick Brooks. And Anthony Hill mentioned him on Monday, and I know there aren't going to be that many snaps available at linebacker this year just because you've got 4 really good ones. But, man, Bo Barnes physically is good enough to help this team right now. It's just he's blocked by 4 really good players, so I want to see him because we know Anthony Hill most likely is gone after this year. You're going to need Bo Barnes big time in 2026, so the more reps you can fit in for him, for lack of a better term right now, I think the better off you're. CJ, am I wrong? Like when I went out on the practice field and we watched the 2 or 3 days, whatever it was, of practice, and I watched the freshman, like physically, he was one of the guys that like I was surprised at because I'd seen him this summer, but like when you watch him on the field, like next to everybody else, like not only is he like he stands out like he's a dude. So yeah, I want to see some more Bo Barnes the next day.
Yeah, it was like watching. To a lesser extent, it was like watching Grayson Littleton, where you see the burst and that quick acceleration, and you're like, "Ooh, there's something there." So for Bo Barnes, I think you can add Christian Clark into that conversation because I know he's not a freshman, but we haven't seen him. There's something to that ability to just go, especially at that size, that is very intriguing for whenever they eventually get on the field. Yeah,
another group, Amanda, that I would mention that I want to see more of. I'm trying to find the forecast for this weekend to see what the weather's going to do.
I checked yesterday, 92. I want to say the high.
Right. Okay, I'm seeing 87 with 24%. It's 60% humidity.
Oh, it's dropped now. 86 is the high.
Still 11 a.m.
Cloudy.
On the field. It's going to be about 40 degrees hotter. It's a really good opportunity to get those young defensive linemen some snaps. So I want to see, Josiah Sharma, Myron Charles, Justice Terry should get his first snaps, his first live positional snaps, and more from Lance Jackson. Like that was one of the surprises that we haven't talked about much. Like I didn't expect Lance Jackson. What was it, CJ? Like the second defensive series?
Yeah, very early.
Lance Jackson was out there. Yeah, I didn't expect to see him that early. So, good. We'll get it because again, you're facing a run and shoot team that wants to throw it, as many times as humanly possible. You're going to need, if you're a scholarship defensive lineman at Texas, you're probably getting some playing time this weekend.
Another question I liked here, Freshwater Cajun asked, obviously Texas ceiling is dependent on Arch. Our defense and run game displayed at Ohio State raised my perception of our floor. What do y'all think?
I think the run game, I'm optimistic, CJ, about where it goes from here. Like it's a good floor set for the run game. It wasn't perfect by any stretch, but a lot further along than I thought it would be. And again, yeah, the ceiling is dependent on Arch because when you've got a special talent like him at quarterback, you want that special talent to elevate everybody around him. Like you think about all the great quarterbacks Texas has had. I don't need to name them all, but think about what they did to an offense. They elevated everybody around them. And that's at some point, that's what Arch needs to do. When is he going to do it? I don't know. He'll do it at some point. It's just, again, the next 3 weeks is a really good opportunity for him to find that rhythm.
Yeah, and for the run game specifically, I think a lot of my ultimate conclusion from Ohio State will come over the next 3 weeks as well. What does their run defense look like against other teams? As Texas is surprisingly optimistic, does Ohio State turn surprisingly pessimistic about their run defense? That's also a good gauge as to what this running back room will look like down the road as well. But right now, I mean, that was very impressive. On top of that, I thought protection was there for Arch Manning as well. If that's the case, you can run the football and protect the quarterback. Well, you got something cooking right there. And I think Texas, again, very optimistic about what that unit could do in 2025.
All right, before we get to our next topic, we're going to thank our friends over at Von Lane. You've got to get from one city to another, and like always, it's a toss-up. Do you deal with the airport chaos and hope your flight isn't delayed, or do you brace yourself for hours behind the wheel, battling traffic and burning a day? Now there's a third option, and it's better in every way. You arrive at a luxury hotel terminal, no TSA lines, no long-term parking lots, just a seamless boarding experience that takes minutes, not hours. You settle into one of just 22 oversized first-class seats with a 140-degree recline, leg rests, and a cabin attendant serving complimentary snacks, beverages, and on select trips, full meals. Need to relax, lean back, and enjoy the ride. Want to stay productive? There's high-speed Wi-Fi and power at every seat. Fall travel is booking fast. Reserve now for October trips to Texas versus Oklahoma in Dallas, F1 and ACL in Austin, or college football weekends in Nashville, Dallas, Fort Worth, and Houston. Von Lane connects Austin, Dallas, Houston, Fort Worth, San Antonio, Nashville, Atlanta, Memphis, and now Knoxville, Tennessee, the Woodlands, Texas, and Plano, Texas. Visit vonlane.com and use the code OTF25 to save $20 on your first ride. Von Lane, elevated regional bus transportation. Thanks so much, Von Lane. And we're going to get to some more of y'all's questions. So make sure y'all get those in, put them in the chat. And once again, those super chats will pop to the top of our list. We'll make sure to get to those. From Retired Working Man, is Derek Williams back?
Yep. Started on Saturday. Just Jelani McDonald did Jelani end up playing the most snaps on defense, CJ, the second most?
Give me 1
I know
second.
Derek Williams, I think he started, but I think he only played like 19 snaps.
Yeah, you're right. Only 12 snaps. So he was on the field to start, but to your point, Michael Taft, Jelani McDonald played every snap defensively. In fact, when Texas added Grayson Littleton to the field, it was Derek Williams that came out. On top of that, Grayson Littleton also played 19 snaps in comparison to Derek Williams' 12. But I think when you see a team like San Jose State coming up here who throws the ball more than any team in the country, that lends you to seeing more 3 safety looks. I was actually surprised Texas came out in that 3 safety high look. Obviously, they didn't stick in it too long as they spun down, a safety more times than not to play a little cover 3. They played some cover 2 shell. But anything that kept a body closer to the line of scrimmage after figuring out that Ohio State was not going to start hucking it with Julian saying, you didn't see many safeties rotated in as a result.
Yeah, if you're going to run that, call it the inverted Tampa 2, the flyover, or whatever you want to call it, that 3 high look, Jelani McDonald is like the textbook perfect middle field safety for that defense. Like you look at what Caleb Downs did at Ohio State. Now, I'm not saying McDonald's Caleb Downs, but you want a guy that he's not a liability in coverage, but he can fit the run, and he's physical, and he's got ball skills, like basically a well-rounded guy. Jelani, that CJ is why I would keep that look in, because you've got 3 starting caliber safeties and a guy who's perfect, like ideal as that middle field safety.
I agree.
Texas Boy Wonder. I said this wrong yesterday again. Texas Boy Wonder. One of these days I'll get your name right. Over under 5 screens this Saturday.
I'm gonna take the over, CJ.
I like the over.
I would hope for the over. I think you need to see a few more of those.
It just feels like one of those things. You got to see more easy throws, and I do think Texas will connect on the vertical shots down the field. I think Texas should be able to create separation just by talent and speed alone, but you just got to get your guy feeling confident, and that starts with those easy completions, whether it's the Sark screen, bubbles, missiles, whatever. Just see the ball go through the hoop, and no easier way to do that than the quick game.
Dude, I did see a post somewhere where somebody said the one thing that a lot of fans took for granted was how good Quinn was at these quick, short, mid-range throws. And Arch obviously struggled in that category, especially during the first half. So that's something, I think that's top of my list of what I would want to see improved upon in the coming games.
Yeah, I mean, I pointed it out as much as I could. Like, that's one area where Quinn really excelled. And I still think this offense is going to be more predicated on their explosive players. Going to be more like Arch throwing it to the spot and less about yards after the catch. But, guys, I'll give Sark one thing, though, one positive thing about Saturday when you talk about the screens. That tight end screen's getting to the point where it's working. Like anytime he ran it with Jatavian Sanders, an athletic tight end, like it never worked. It lost yards or it was incomplete. Gunnar Helm got pretty good at it. And the one time you ran it with Jack Andrews, it gained positive yards. So I didn't think I'd ever say this about Sark's offense, but I may need a little more tight end screen than we got last week. Not saying overuse it, CJ. I'm just saying, like, you want maybe three tight end screens in the game. Maybe 3 might be pushing it, maybe 2.
Yeah.
Give me a little more tight end screen.
I think the way that you dress it up, how much motion do you have coming into it? Texas uses a lot of motion. Motion targets motion is something that you and Rod like to use in terms of kind of evaluating Sark's offense as well. But what kind of dressage? Is it? I don't know. How can you dress up the play? Yeah. That's the word we're looking for there. Yeah. That's the key. Because other than that, you got a tight end as a nub. Okay, well now I know if he's not going vertical and he's chipping in. I need to be aware of that if I'm a linebacker to that side.
Yeah, that's when, again, I hate to go back to Saturday, but that's one thing where Sark hamstrung himself. Like, that's one of the benefits and the beauties of his offense. Like, yeah, you can run inside zone, but I'm going to run it from 10 different formations and put all different kinds of motions on it and do all kinds of things to give you eye candy and ruin everybody's keys, but it's going to be inside zone. I'm just going to run it 10 different ways.
David Keith Williams says, Coach Sarkisian also has to call more plays that are focused on Jack Endries as a primary target. I hope by SEC play, Endries is Arch Manning's clear go-to receiver. What do we think about that?
I wouldn't hate it. I think I'd like to see Ryan Wingo as the focal point. And I say that because, look, you're likely going to have 2 years with the two of them. So the earlier you can get that cohesiveness working immediately, that's great for the long term for Texas football. But if immediately, look, Jack Endries made a great contested catch on the sideline, and he was able to wiggle beyond, some yards after contact on that screen that you mentioned, Jeff. So, he showed the promise that we thought he was going to bring to the table whenever Texas added him to the roster. Now, obviously, just got to build on it. I would like to see Arch check down to Jack Endries more. There were plenty of opportunities for that.
Yeah. If I'm Sark and Chris Jackson, like, I'm gonna give Ryan Wingo every opportunity to prove he's my number one guy until it's either he does it or like it's a detriment to the offense that you're still, trying to force it. But it's there with Wingo. Like, I know it is. You just gotta keep chipping away.
One question from Darwin Lemon. Did you guys notice how little motion that Sark used? Seemed vanilla. Maybe he was hiding the playbook from the SEC. I don't know about that. I don't know if you'd want to hide the playbook from the SEC when you're playing a team like Ohio State.
Yeah, I don't buy that at all. There was motion. The targets to motion is where the discrepancy is. I thought Texas continued to use a lot of motion. Now, I have the numbers from a year ago. Arch, when in the game, had a significantly lower motion percentage than Quinn Ewers. Now, let's also compare that to third year as a starting quarterback versus first time starting against actual opponents. So I think it's not justifiable to think that we just won't see as much motion in this offense, but there was a good amount of motion. I still think that the idea that Texas was holding back its offense for future games, I don't know. If you're playing in front of 18 million, I would assume you'd like to win that game. That's my guess.
Yeah. I don't think it was holding back as much as it just was a miscalculation by Sark that he went to Columbus thinking, you know what, we're just going to play Ohio State as straight up as possible and see where we stand. And it didn't work out too well.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's the last time we see that. Again, I've used this phrase a lot this week, just the game plan, the adjustments, really up until for that one drive at the start of the third quarter, just uncharacteristic, out of character for what we've come to know from Sark.
I think this one's interesting. Sailor Joe asked, do you think we see similar play calling by Sark as the Ohio State game these next 3 games so that they minimize the film Florida will have on Texas. I don't think he's going to just stick to the same exact playbook he did with Ohio State. I mean, I would hope not as well.
No, and Sailor Joe, I don't mean to belittle your question at all. No, look, again, what we were just saying about motions and shifts and personnel groupings and changing your formations. You want to run bunch formations, just spread the field, whatever. That's the beauty with Sark's offense. It shouldn't matter. Like Billy Napier and that staff, they've got multiple years now of Sark at Texas on film. So, like, I don't know at this point what you can really hide that's going to be to your benefit. I mean, if you want to do more quarterback run game with Arch, all right, everybody in the country sees quarterback run game at some point on their schedule, so you can plan for it. So I don't think it's about saving anything for Florida or trying to prevent stuff from Florida. To me, again, if you see Texas not really open it up, which I think they should, like, rep what you want to get good at. To me, it'll be all about, hey, these are going to be our core concepts, the core principles of this offense. Again, this is a young offense. I think we all need to remember that. Like, you've got inexperienced pieces. So this offense is still trying to figure out, okay, what do we hang our hat on? If you see Texas be a little less exotic than maybe you'd see a Sark offense, that's probably why they're trying to figure out on the fly, kind of, hey, what are we going to hang our hat on?
Speaking of those young guys, how did Livingston's hands look in fall practice? He didn't catch the ball cleanly with his hands on Saturday. He was a guy, wide receiver, getting open, though. Thanks so much for your question, Terry.
Yeah, he's got good hands. I would say hands are at probably the bottom of the list of concerns for Parker Livingstone. I think, again, he mentioned it on Monday, Jeff. I'm sure you heard it, but perimeter blocking, fighting through the line of scrimmage, just getting stronger as he plays more football. That's probably where you look at where his game can immediately improve. But no, his hands are fine. We look at Cornell Tate saying, hey, he bobbled that ball, but because there's a defender there, similarly to what Parker Livingstone's was, it's revered as a significant catch and a heck of a play. But no, his hands are fine.
And before we get to more of y'all's questions, make sure y'all are getting those questions in. Once again, reminder, the super chats, they'll pop to the top of our list. We're going to thank our sponsor over at Hayes City Store. Jeff, I will let you thank them.
Heck yeah, one of my favorite spots in the greater Austin area. There are very few restaurants that once you go to, you immediately know that place is just special. Hayes City Store is one of those places. It's scratch-made Texas comfort food. They've got their famous truck stop enchiladas, the award-winning chicken fried steak, homemade desserts. Get the key lime pie. You'll thank me later. All of it absolutely delicious, and again, made from scratch. There's also live music six nights a week with 50 beer taps, ice-cold long necks, and tasty margaritas. They've got 11 TVs in their ice house. It's a perfect setup for your game day. And they even have brunch. They're taking advantage of that brunch menu Sundays 10 to 3. Hayes City Store is dog friendly, and they have a tree net for kids. So join the folks out at Hayes City Store. Bring your whole crew out there and enjoy a little Texas Hill Country and some outstanding food. For more information, check out the website HayesCityStoreTX.com. Hayes City Store, it's uniquely Texas.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Another good comment here from David. We've talked about this a little bit, just Arch's comfortability with the O-line and his protection. One thing that was somewhat concerning about Arch Manning was that it seemed as though he was playing without any trust in his O-line. Every passing play, he seemed to rush himself, and it was unnecessary. Would you guys put this in the top category of things you would like to see him address in these next I see CJ nodding vigorous. I see Jeff nodding vigorously. I think that's one of the major things that in these kinds of games, this is an easy thing to work on. You are muted.
Don't do it. CJ's muted.
He's back.
Not me. It wasn't me on the show.
I'm sorry. Add it to the tally board. Yeah, I know.
It's a dang coaching mistake, CJ.
Yeah, but no, I think that's absolutely the biggest thing that he can work on against these next 3 games. The speed will certainly be slowed down, but I can't fault Arch, really, for coming into Ohio State thinking that was what he was going to see. And again, I look back, what was the last time that we saw Arch play a full possession? It was against Georgia, and Georgia just wiped the floor with Texas the entire night. Pressure from the left, pressure from the right, pressure from the middle. I mean, I'm sure that's what he was expecting, especially after, and I can't emphasize this enough. You replaced 4 offensive linemen. That offensive line that you thought you were going to have going into fall camp, going into Ohio State, is even flipped upside down a little bit the week of the game. How can you be confident if you're Arch Manning going into Ohio State, knowing that this is a team like an Alabama? Well, I can't include Alabama. Like an Alabama of Nick Saban, of the Nick Saban era, like Georgia today, like how Texas is. You talk about how teams just continually have talent up front. I'm sure he's expecting to have 30-plus pressures in his face because guys on that offensive line just haven't played football at the college level before. But yes, he needs to slow down. He needs to be able to diagnose what's going on beyond him. And this next 3 weeks, this next month is a great opportunity for him to sit in, put a lawn chair in his pocket, and essentially just camp out and find ways to feel comfortable, understand when to run, when to throw it away, and when to take that deep shot. And I'm hopeful this is where we look at it in 3 weeks and say, oh, yeah, he's fixed. Everything's good. Season's on.
CJ, that's a hell of a way to redeem yourself after a mute. Outstanding job.
I did see a comment up here. Where'd it go?
I know. It's
being on mute by OTF guys is the equivalent of Arch sidearming his throws.
CJ, don't feel bad. I got stuck in traffic today and took a wrong turn, and my daughter told me what she told me. She said, "Get out of La La Land and get my head in the game." So that was the message from my 7-year-old in the back.
I was about to say, hold it. You're going to be in for a handful in a couple of years.
Yeah,
got some sass that one.
And I need to not laugh, but I mean, what else are you going to do when you hear that? I mean, it's you never expect it. So
I'd hit her with a get out and walk.
I think that's a daughter thing, honestly. You'll make it through, though.
Yeah, I'll be good.
Okay, moving on to Stephen Houston. Our offensive line push surprised me a bit outside of our goal line debacle. We just weren't making enough guys miss to break the big one.
I mean, I that's why I said that the run game. I've said the run game has left some meat on the bone Saturday. Like, it wasn't great. But man, I don't know. It's hard for me to nitpick going up to, especially, you got to remember, and again, sacks go into this. So the sack yardage plays a big factor. But in the 3 losses last year, they were averaging 39 yards a game and less than 1.5 yards per carry in the 3 losses last year. So I'll take 166 with some things to work on. And I'm with you, Steven. They did leave some plays on the field. Like, if a guy just sticks on a block a hair longer, or a guy picks his feet up in the hole, whatever it is, you can see where, hey man, that was a 6-yard run, but it could have been a 15, 20-yarder. That stuff will get fixed here in the next few weeks, hopefully. But yeah, it's hard for me to nitpick or complain too much about the run game after Saturday.
Yeah, I feel good. Now, predictability is where I'm going next. And I thought it was very predictable at times on Saturday, especially with those quarterback sneaks. You got to find wrinkles. Sark had wrinkles a year ago with the ball snapping between the quarterback's legs, or the QB the halfback toss to was it C.J. Baxter against Kansas in 2023, Kansas State?
Yeah,
on the wrinkles, and I didn't see enough of that week 1.
Yeah, Sailor Joe mentioned, and I've seen other mention, you got to get rid of the tush push. Ditch the. They didn't even try that. They didn't even get that far on the sneak to have the second effort. So yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know if they just haven't repped it enough, if Arch isn't natural at it, or what. But yeah, it needs. And honestly, like, that's especially with the defense you face in practice, it's a hard play to rep in live periods. That it's a play you don't want to rep much. Like, if I'm Sark, I don't want to, have my starting quarterback put his head down and try to bury himself in the A gap, knowing the interior defensive line you've got across the line of scrimmage, like in a red zone lockout period. So I don't know. Maybe they work on it and figure it out, or maybe they just ditch it. I don't know.
Yeah, retired working man says, I'm good with run, but need to change up on the goal line. And I think that's something that most Texas fans would agree with is the goal line, the red zone. The red zones. We've gotten a lot of comments about the red zone struggles.
Yeah. It was interesting watching that North Carolina TCU game. Again, I know I'm not going to make it about Bill Belichick, but TCU had a snap from like the 6-yard line. They just had a simple stick concept. It was a 2x2. You had a tight end attached as a nub, run a quick 5-yard curl and just kind of float to the outside depending on the zone. And you had a straight to the pylon, the front pylon, just kind of a dagger route by that outside wide receiver. And you find zone, you're quick with your feet, and you have an easy score. And I'm sitting there thinking, why have we never seen something like that? There's concepts that work in the red zone, and I really liked that 3x1 smash concept with the 2 outside digs. I really like that to Parker Livingstone, but I don't like that on 4th down because the margins are just so thin. So, we'll see how creative Sark gets, and I do think, if there's anything that he accomplished this week, my hope, and this is merely a hope, I'm hoping that he was watching some other college football this week saying, how can I add to my bag with some trickery in the red zone?
Man, I go back to the Dana Holgerson drew up this 2-point play, and it's not any like reinventing the wheel against Texas in 2018.
Was it the diamond, the 4x1?
It was the 4x1, yeah, because on the single receiver side, the guy can release and run a fade, which again, that concept and idea needs to be fired into the sun because unless you've got Calvin Johnson, it's probably not going to work. Yeah. Or if the guy's playing outside leverage for whatever reason, it's a slant. But basically, that single receiver's got a 2-way go, and then on the diamond bunch side, you probably, if you throw it over there, you could throw a screen, and the guy's got 3 blockers in front of him. So, like stuff like that. Like I've made my opinions known about Tom Herman, but like I like the fact that like Texas ran that in overtime against Texas Tech 2 years later, and Tom Herman was straight up like, yeah, I stole that from Dana Holgerson, just straight up. Yeah. Like I liked it so much, I stole it. And actually, I tell you that because Texas ended up running the next year against Oklahoma State at home, and against Tech they hit Brendan Eagles on the backside slant on the single receiver side. Against Oklahoma State, they threw that quick screen to Roshan Johnson and he scored. So yeah, I don't know if Sark's just gotta get in the film and like just steal some stuff, but yeah, you gotta get creative.
I don't know if you saw it, and I really wish I could remember who ran it. It might have been TCU again. I don't remember, but on a 4th and 1, 4th and 2, 3rd and 2, something short, it was a 5-0 alignment. It was a bunch 5 to the right. It was basically a swinging gate. You had 2 tight ends out there, 2 big wide receivers, and a skinnier guy on the back end. And it was basically just, a Red Rover play. Set go. Those 4 up front go push whoever the corners, the safeties, linebackers are out there, and you just got to have that guy catch the football and fall forward because there's going to be a push there with 4 guys holding hands. It's that simple. But I'd like to see some new wrinkles moving forward. Like a guy who doesn't know they're getting old. I want to see some new wrinkles.
I want to give a shout out to Ray Gates and that North Crowley staff because CJ, I don't know if you ran it back in your high school days, but like for extra points, we'd line up in the swinging gate, and I always thought it was the biggest like slap D thing in the world. I'm like, this formation is dumb. Like nobody falls for it. It never works. You never run anything. And I'll be damned if North Crowley in a state championship game didn't run a successful play out of the swinging gate. So I'm like, holy crap! Like they ran it. It actually worked. So I don't know. Maybe Sark's just got to go really, really deep into the bag to find something that works.
All right. This question from Billy looks like a good one to close it out on. This is a 5-game season. OSU, Florida, OU, Georgia, and Texas A&M. 4-1. Your thoughts?
Man, I just it's hard for me when you consider you're going on the road to Gainesville and Athens, and you got the OU game in Dallas. It's really hard for me to see anybody going undefeated in SEC play. As good as this conference is, and as tough as it is to play on the road in this conference. So 4-1 is possible. Would I take it today?
Yes. In a heartbeat, I would.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I'd take it. I'm saying, do I think it? Do I feel confident that it's going to happen? I'm not confident that it'll happen. But yeah. Oh yeah. If
That's exactly why I'm taking it. Because
yeah,
I'm not confident.
yeah. No, I'd
And
take
until
it.
I see Texas prove me wrong in my lack of confidence, I'm going to say, hey,
Y'all have some faith. Come on.
tell me that.
But Bobby Petronic makes a good point. Says if we get out of that 3-2, probably make the CFP. I mean, if you're 3-2 in that stretch, you're probably in Atlanta playing for an SEC championship.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think look, obviously if you're in the playoff if you win the SEC, but like a 10-3 Texas, if your losses are, Ohio State, one of Florida or Georgia on the road, and in the SEC championship game, yeah, I think you make a really, really good case that you deserve an at-large bid at that point.
Yeah, I think so too. I think my prediction beginning of the season was 11-1, and it's just with OSU, your margin of error is so much slimmer now, which is disappointing in week 1.
Very. That's why you don't coach to save any plays or formations week 1.
Yeah, I don't think they were saving anything for later in week 1. I think there were just some mistakes learned in that game of things that need to be worked on for the future. But that is about all of our time, guys. Thanks so much for joining us for this Longhorn live stream. We will be back here with me next Tuesday and Wednesday. And I'll be at the game, San Jose State this weekend. Home opener. Super exciting. Do we have a setup somewhere this weekend?
We'll check on that. We'll have the guys on Coffee and Football tomorrow at 8:15 fill you back in. I do not know.
I know Friday afternoon, Bobby, Jerry, Rod will be down at the co-op. So I don't know exactly what the plan is for Saturday, but yes, definitely doing something.
Awesome. All right, y'all. Make sure y'all tune into Coffee and Football, like CJ said, tomorrow morning, bright and early. And we're on Texas football for this Longhorn live stream for CJ Vogel and Jeff Howe. I'm Amanda Atwell. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys, and hook 'em horns.
Hook 'em.